Hello and welcome to What's My Tagline. I'm your host, Carol Flagg. Thanks for tuning in. On this show, we put our microphone in front of a variety of industry experts to understand the factors influencing messaging, branding, and reputation in healthcare. You can follow the conversation on Twitter at #What'sMyTagline and follow me at Carol Flagg. My guest today is Erik Sunset, the marketing manager for Aprima Medical Software, and we're going to be talking about one company's story on the evolution of its EHR marketing. Erik, thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're in Miami, so enjoy a beautiful day of weather, I'm sure, this time of year.
It's really hard to complain. Sunny, 75, not a whole lot to not like about it.
Well, that sounds great. Not too dissimilar from Phoenix, except I think we're about 20 degrees hotter today. So it's already hit us. So, but anyway, well, good. My first question of all my guests is: if you had to describe yourself as a tagline, what would it be?
Yeah, and I stewed on this. I wanted to get it exactly right, and that's kind of typical of me. But it really boils down to just the simple phrase of "you're in control." And if you want to see an outcome, you got to make it happen. For those with a psychological bias, I guess that's a really high internal locus of control. Where if you want to see something done, who better to do it than you? So you're in control.
And so that sounds like that really resonates with you personally. How does it impact you professionally as a marketing manager working for Aprima?
Yeah, well, when you talk about being a modern day marketer, you have to get as much as you possibly can out of your hours in a day. So when it comes down to things like automation and CRM workflows, or that's customer relationship management software, so things like Salesforce or Pardot or whatever you like. If you want to see an automation set up for your company to help you as a marketer, to help your sales team, to help your operations folks, who better to do it than you? Get it set up, get it running, and then you get to show it off. So it's definitely a control thing, and I don't think that's always a bad thing, particularly in business.
So you just described yourself as a modern day marketer. I really, I would love to know what you mean by that. I think I might be a non-modern day marketer, so I would love to know what that means. Presumably you might be talking about marketing in a digital world versus, quote, the old days of, old-fashioned radio and print magazine and billboards, or.
Yeah, sure. So I'm going to borrow a phrase from the software development world where somebody can be full stack, where they understand the language that they're programming in, they understand the purpose of the software, they understand the use case for the software in the business or to sell it. And today in marketing, you kind of have to think the same way. Everything is interconnected. You mentioned digital marketing, so that's your web, your social, your email. All of the data gathering tools that work across all of those spaces. And then not to mention even just your good old fashioned organic search ranking. You really have to understand how all those pieces fit together. There's a blurring of the line, in my opinion, between marketing and sales. And that's probably the way it should have always have been. But traditionally you'd have a marketing department, you'd have a sales department, and maybe the folks working in billboard ads maybe wouldn't deal a whole lot with those working in radio or TV spots or what have you. But now in the modern age, I guess, it's all interconnected. So much of it is digital. The tracking mechanisms that are available, obviously Facebook's in a little bit of hot water with their data leak. I'm not sure you can call it a breach, but their lack of oversight over what's happening with their user data. So that kind of skews towards the unsavory side of things. Nobody wants their personal data compromised, but I digress. To understand how all of the pieces in a digital marketing world fit together, I think that's what separates those that do well and can leverage all these tools from those that maybe only grasp a few bits or pieces of it and see success in one area, but maybe not as much as they'd like in another.
Yeah, that's a great point. This idea that as marketing marketing managers today, and you have to be more than just marketing. You have to understand sort of, some of the technical aspects that go into the digital world of this.
Yeah, and I'd like to put a bow on that thought. I started down the path and then chose another. That the blurring of the line between marketing and sales. I mean, marketing is really just the spearhead of sales, and particularly when you're talking about enterprise software like electronic health records and all of the associated services and solutions that go with them. You really have to be the one to start that conversation, whether that's in an outbound capacity through email or through being proactive on social, or whether you're sitting and waiting for that conversation to happen with your web content or your listing social or your videos or whatever the case may be. Marketing is really the start of that conversation with people that may be interested in you. And it's marketing's job to turn those people into maybe interested into, I'd like to learn a little bit more. So gone are the days, in my opinion, of, marketing puts out collateral and print ads and then sales handles some sales specific function, but really the two are so completely intertwined. I'm not sure there's so much of a difference between the two.
The same arrow, just that marketing is the tip of it. I get it. Yeah, that's a great analogy. So how did you become, let's talk about your background. How did you get into marketing and into healthcare and into Aprima? And what is your road to becoming a modern marketing manager? I'd love to hear your story.
Yeah. Well, thanks for asking. I've been in the right place at the right time an awful lot. So I feel fortunate to be where I am. Went to college at the Florida State University in Tallahassee, Florida, and was the first graduating class that had the opportunity to get a professional sales degree. And now that's a pretty mainstream program throughout the nation, particularly the Southeast. So that lives in the marketing track, but it is its own distinct program at Florida State. And after graduating, looked around at my prospects for employment. Thankfully, didn't have to wait too long. But my start in a career and my start in healthcare were really one and the same. My life started for an EHR reseller here in Miami, where we provided not only the sales function, but the support, implementation, conversions, hosting. We've said full stack before, so we'll use it again. It was a full stack reseller, which sometimes gets kind of a bad connotation when you're talking about electronic health records. This is a full service shop. It started out just in pure outbound lead generation. You probably know it better as telemarketing, where we're heating up the phone lines all day. And like I said, was in the right place at the right time, had an opportunity to advance with a more inside sales role, where rather than just hand off interested parties to the direct sales team, actually got to handle those opportunities myself. Again, right place at the right time, all at the same reseller here in Miami. Took on a marketing operations and sales operations role and moved on to field sales, covering the entire state of Florida, which is a monster territory. I do not envy those that cover the entire state.
It's a big state.
Very big state. Good place to be, though. Awful lot of physicians. Population is growing. Nobody wants to be in 40-degree, snowy Chicago weather at April 10th like we're having now. And then I always make a joke that they must have missed me too much at the office, because I actually came back to manage the company and managed it for a handful of years. And in January of 2017, last year, that company was acquired by Aprimas.
Oh, I see.
And one of the things one of the really cool things about Aprimas is they, as a sales partner, they really put a focus on what a family it is and how willing they are to do whatever it takes to help you. And that holds true even as a part of the Aprima family now. So there was an opportunity to take ownership over a handful of the marketing functions and bring some of those automations that we talked about to Aprima, and we've done that. So I've been here a little over a year, going on a year and a half this summer, I guess, and it's been a fantastic experience.
Yeah, and Aprima has actually been around for a long time. It's not an EHR that came into the market shortly before, during, or just after the HITECH Act was passed in 2009. It's actually been around. I learned this at HIMSS. It's been around for a long time. And actually, it started its role, really its roots as a practice management system. Is that correct?
Yeah. So let's go back a step. It's actually our 20th anniversary.
Yeah.
So we are far from a newcomer to the marketplace. So happy 20th birthday to Aprima Medical Software.
Happy birthday.
And then yeah, thank you very much. We're going to have a big party at our user conference this August. And that's a long time to be around in this space. It's incredibly competitive, and I think it speaks to that family type mentality where everybody matters. We want to provide the right products, the right time to the right folks, and you've certainly seen that for the last 20 years. It's got a very strong, you talk about starting as a practice management system, it's got a very strong foundation in terms of the PM side of things. And part of that is that the executive team, some of the executive team prior to being part of Aprima, they actually worked for a practice management system that was later acquired by another vendor. And that product's since been sunsetted. But Aprima started out its life as an EHR only. And then just a couple of years later, they did develop and release the practice management side of things. But just that experience with the executive team, some of which is still part of the executive team at Aprima, very strong understanding of PM and what it takes to make a practice successful in terms of software use.
So that's as a modern marketing manager, I love that. I really love that term. How have you been able to work with Aprima in pushing their message forward? I mean, your experience, obviously, as a salesperson, managing a marketing department, the acquisition that you went through, your company was acquired by Aprimas, so you've gone through this acquisition process, and so it's today leading the marketing team at Aprima. What do you turn to keep pushing the message and learn? Have customers learning about Aprima, what Aprima does. It's an award-winning system by KLAS. Talk a little bit about that, because it is a very competitive market. It still is, years later, even with acquisitions and companies that have folded in the EHR space. It's still very competitive.
Oh yeah, it's incredibly competitive, and my job in marketing is made easy. I'm standing on the shoulders of giants here. Where the company has done such a good job with the software, the support resources are actually all based here in the U.S. We're headquartered in Dallas, so all of our support and development happens here stateside, which is certainly a leg up and a great story to tell. Anybody getting help from either offshored or outsourced departments knows that can be hit or miss at times. But there's a lot of really good news to share. You mentioned our best in class win. We're the number one rated PM EHR for 2018 with KLAS in the small practice ambulatory space. We got really high marks further up the provider count food chain, if you will. And going beyond that, we've also got 2018 KLAS recognition as a top tier vendor of ambulatory revenue cycle management services.
Ah, RCM. Yeah.
Yeah, that also all happens here stateside, and that's a pretty compelling story, and it really speaks to that family aspect. You're not getting left out in the cold. There isn't extra billing work for practices to do when you have RCM with Aprima, but all of the hard work that the implementation teams, the support teams, the development teams do. I mean, that really speaks to all of these awards. They've done things the right way. We've done things the right way for so long, but to have that story to tell makes my job easy.
Yeah. If you're just tuning in, you're listening to What's My Tagline, and my guest today is Erik Sunset of Aprima Medical Software. So let's switch gears here a little bit. Obviously, when the HITECH Act was passed in 2009, there were billions of dollars made available for eligible professionals, providers, to earn incentives for Medicare and Medicaid, but it's more so on the Medicare side, for adopting certified EHR technology. And that program obviously is winding down with the passing of MACRA and the quality payment program. So as an EHR, PM, RCM company, with the industry shifting into value-based care, and the meaningful use part of the HITECH Act is now wrapped in as ACI, Advancing Care Information, under the Quality Payment Program. How have you guys pivoted or changed or made the shift with the industry as we've gone to value-based care?
Yeah, you got it. So I'll speak a little bit to the meaningful use days. That was a ringer not only for physicians, and certainly the physician practices bared the bulk of the load there. That was not every physician's favorite regulatory program to take part in, but they certainly took the challenge head on. That was also tough for software shops like Aprima, where those regulations and those software requirements that you had to meet and had to be certified, you had to show the government that you actually met those, or the regulatory bodies rather. So that was a big load on the software development side of things too. But even though that was, I don't want to say onerous, I don't think that's fair. Even though that's a lot of work to get your software up to snuff and to get it certified, we've got a really strong panel of physicians that contributes their expertise to Aprima. So like our chief medical officer, a number of other physicians that regularly contribute their thoughts to the product and ways to fine tune it, continually improve it. That took place all through those tough days of meaningful use, where you're scrambling to meet a deadline. You get a day or two to breathe, and then stage 2 comes out, then stage 2.5, I guess.
Yeah.
And then shifting more towards the MACRA MIPS side of things and value-based care, I think we're really well positioned as an organization and a software. Everybody's got interoperability on the mind. You walk through the HIMSS exhibit hall, HIMSS 18, HIMSS 17, all the way back. It's always about interoperability. And we're doing some really neat things with the main players in that connecting space. So you've got Commonwealth, you've got FHIR, and that's FHIR. And then even SureScripts with their National Record Locator Service. We've got relationships with all of these platforms so that as the industry moves forward together, interoperability can be easy. And that's certainly going to play a key part in value-based care. Obviously, you don't have to tell the story of how much is wasted really in terms of spending on repeat tests, et cetera. There's more written about that than I'll ever know. But even with participation in those platforms, we are proud of this. We even enable our clients to be interoperable with their physician peers or their practice peers who are either paper-based or not really using their EHRs effectively, where they're using an EHR to just tick a box and they kind of go through their day-to-day routine as if they were half paper and half EHR. So with Aprima, we're striving to be interoperable even in arenas where maybe the receiving end isn't totally there yet. So we just try to make interoperability as easy as possible. To go back to meaningful use, we've got a sterling track record that we're always in the first 1, 2, or 3 systems that were achieving those certifications. And then the same goes for MACRA MIPS. Obviously, March 31st was a big day for providers to get their 2017 attestations in. And then that just keeps on rolling into the new year and onward.
Do you think the customers that you work with, with this, this big shift, obviously from fee-for-service to value-based care, I mean, obviously that can't happen overnight, and it takes time to, to steer this big boat towards a different kind of goal. Your customers that you work with, obviously, and your team works with, and your sales department, are they generally, I guess, glad is a tough word, but there's obviously been a lot that has had to have happened under the HITECH Act. But the move to value-based care and all these things are happening with MACRA. Do they perceive it as a positive or just another set of hoops to jump through, or I guess a different set of hoops to jump through?
Yeah, sure. So I think there's a bigger societal conversation to have there, that we're in an extremely polarized world and all things, not just political. Obviously, that's an easy example to draw on, but it seems that you're either for something or against something. And whether you're just kind of towing the line on some things are good, some things are bad, there's a lot of folks picking a side and they want to make sure that people know what side they're on. But the physicians that we talk to and the physicians that we work with, our clients, a lot of them have a little bit more enlightened view, where I think the rolling of meaningful use into the ACI component of MACRA, that's generally viewed as a positive.
Yeah.
You know, we're consolidating a lot of these measures where you're attesting for essentially the same thing across two different programs, or we were at one point. And to have it consolidated into QPP, or the Quality Payment Program that envelops MACRA, I think that's generally viewed as a good thing. To go a step beyond that, ultimately physicians are physicians because they want to keep people healthy. They want to heal the sick, you know, all the good things that physicians do. And I certainly don't blame them for being a little frustrated with how they've been handled in terms of reporting and regulatory guidelines and mandates and those types of things. So I can certainly see that side of it.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, if you've got a tool that can make reporting and tracking and attesting to all of these programs easier, that just makes that brings you back to your calling. That brings you back to why you became a physician in the first place, which is to treat people. And that's a good thing in my eyes.
Yeah. And certainly the streamlining of, PQRS and meaningful use and other reporting mechanisms or programs that they have to report on under one umbrella, certainly from an attestation standpoint is very helpful.
Yeah, without a doubt, and certainly there will be some friction, maybe some pain points with the shift from fee-for-service to true value-based care. That's an ongoing conversation. Obviously, some parts of the country are further ahead than others, but ultimately that keeps people healthier. And I don't think there's a physician out there that would be opposed to that. I know there isn't.
Right. So as we say, the HITECH incentives are pretty much wound down, and we've moved into the Quality Payment Program, MIPS, APM side of all of this, and bonuses related to how they do and whatnot. Are you finding your new customers that you're onboarding at Aprima, are you finding that these are still physicians that are hard to believe in my head on paper and finally getting around to installing and choosing an EHR, or are you seeing that these are practices that perhaps were early adopters along the way? We mentioned, obviously 2010, 2011, 2012 even was a huge year of buying EHR systems, and now they're switching EHR systems because it's not so much about the incentives anymore. Have to get on the train, but rather what is going to benefit my practice and my workflows and how I operate as a medical practice.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head with the latter assessment there, that most practices are using some type of EHR software. Now, how well they're using it, how to use the scary term, meaningfully using it, that can be another question.
Right.
But you're seeing these systems that are not so robust being either acquired and having that user base transferred to the acquirer's flagship product. In some instances, some of these systems are just falling off the market entirely because they no longer fit a need and the development capability isn't there. But providers are smart. They know what's going on with MACRA. They see the shift to value-based care. They live it. They're feeling it every day. And you start to ask questions like, how can I get my chronically ill patients in more regularly? Well, if you're not meaningfully using a software, that's next to impossible to do on paper. And if you're kind of stuck between two minds and you have a software that you use for some things and you have paper that you use for others, you're not in a great position there either. So to come back to that trope that physicians want people to be healthy, they would much rather keep people healthy than treat the chronically ill or the extremely sick population. They certainly understand, in my eyes, that to have a software that can do the bulk of that for you is critical. And you're starting to see that where my existing EHR can't do X, Y, or Z thing. I need it to. My patients need it to. So I've got to look around. I have to do better in that aspect.
Right. Well, believe it or not, we only have a couple minutes left in our conversation today. So let's wrap up with talking about what's next for Aprima. What's coming down the pike?
Well, we mentioned it earlier. We've got our 20-year celebration is 2018. Our user conference is not so far away. It's the week of August 16th through the weekends, and we're actually really excited about our user conference. Our last 2 years, or the year prior, we offered continuing medical education credits, CMEs, for the first time, and we're actually expanding on that this year to offer even more CMEs. So we've had record attendance basically every year that we've had a user conference. Speaks to that family aspect. So to have even more CMEs on offer, even more robust courses. Some of the things that we teach on are even to get doctors into that digital marketing space in some ways, to be stronger on social media, stronger web presence. So when you view it in totality, physician practices have to pay the bills to keep the lights on. Certainly priority number one is not to make money, but to treat patients. But you have to do both. And I think what we enable providers to do will be strong moving forward as providers come off of these non-viable EHRs, see something better. Hopefully that something better is with Aprima and the Aprima family. And we can continue to rack up award wins and provide a premium product.
I think our listeners, obviously, they can find more about this user conference on their Aprima website.
Absolutely. So you do have to be an Aprima client to attend, but the information of it is available on aprima.com.
Great. Erik, thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah, thank you, Carol. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah, I did too. You can learn more about Erik and Aprima at www.aprima.com. And of course, follow the company on Twitter at AprimaMedEHR. You can share your thoughts or comments on Twitter at #What'sMyTagline, or visit the program page on healthcarenowradio.com. Have a topic related to our show you want to hear about? Or are you an expert who'd like to be on the show? Reach out to me on Twitter at Carol Flagg, or email me at carol@healthcarenowradio.com. Until next time, I'm Carol Flagg, and I want to know, what's your tagline?